Live. And we're live. Hello. Just popping on a nanosecond too early, or a nanosecond right, just to make sure everything's working okay, and that we have hopefully enough light, etc., etc. Ever since we painted the doghouse here, yeah, the yellow's been makes things a wee bit dimmer. I'm not too sure about the lighting. I might need to bring in another light of some kind. But anyway, to anybody who's watching, thank you very much for joining me. I'm Doc Sloan. Welcome to my science fiction station, also known as the Doghouse. And this is our weekly book club, I suppose. So we have been running at we've been off for a little bit of a while, and we've started again last week with chapter 27 of Dune. And this week we're running with chapter 28, obviously. Excuse me. And basically, yes, we're running with a once a week format, just to make things a wee bit easier, and so we can get back on with doing a few things with the station. So tonight, there we go. There's 10 o'clock. We're going to get on with chapter 28 of Dune. And obviously, for anybody who's joining us fresh here tonight, the chapter Dune doesn't have chapter numbers, and instead begins with little epigraphs, if you like. So in this case, in this edition, we're on page 273, and our epigraph is, "We came from Caladan, a paradise world for our form of life. There existed no need on Caladan to build a physical paradise or a paradise of the mind. We could see the actuality all around us, and the price was and the price we paid was the price men have always paid for achieving a paradise in this life. We went soft, we lost our edge." And this epigraph is taken from Muad'Dib, Conversations by the Princess Irulan, of course. Excuse me, to point out all the epigraphs pretty much are by the Princess Irulan, in this book anyway. So we're fast approaching it, and though we're not hitting it in this chapter, the next chapter, chapter 29, we will, I believe, yes, hit the halfway point in the book. Which is a bit of an achievement because it's quite a chunky book. There we go. So chapter 28, and this epigraph, I suppose, in terms of how this chapter runs, this can relate to, I suppose, Gurney and his men. We came from Caladan, a paradise world for our form of life. They came from heaven. Basically, what's the problem with living in paradise? It makes you soft. You lose your edge. So very much, I think, applies to Gurney, especially his men here. And we're going to get a very curious little phrase at the end of the chapter, I suppose, when Gurney's considering his men about what they thought Arrakis might be. So there we go. So chapter 28 is where we'll be having a look at tonight in detail. The previous chapter was, goodness, what a heavy, dense chapter it was. And I'd argue it was an awful lot of action. It was very much an action-driven chapter, a little bit of movement within the narrative, but not much. But essentially, within the moments of silence, the moments of rest within that chapter, we got quite a bit of Paul and Jessica's thoughts. So in contrast to this chapter, I suppose this chapter is really conversation-driven, isn't it? And I suppose conversation, discussion, and also rumor are what really apply in this chapter. And it's a good bit shorter than the previous chapter, fortunately. Excuse me, I'll just check in with you folks. Very interested to hear your comments on this chapter. Also, good evening. Evening, Bojack. Thanks for joining us. There's Chaya Rivka saying, "Shalom, all welcome back, Doc." Thanks, Chaya. Thanks, Chaya. Good to be back. I'm tripping over my words tonight a wee bit. There's Babs Bilo saying, "Evening, Doc." Evening, Babs. Thanks for joining me. Joining us, actually. So there you go. I'm having a glass of the black stuff tonight. So here's to your health, everybody. Just to try and keep my throat lubricated a little bit more as we go, I suppose. I was going to do something for you guys tonight before we started this chapter, in terms of how we ended the previous chapter with the review of the hand, etc. And we had talked a little bit about the symbology of hands. I was going to go into that in a little bit of detail briefly, because we're going to get some more of it in this chapter. unfortunately, what I had was I had three books that are pertaining to the history of Ulster. And I'd argue that they're sort of an attempt at iconotropy, which is the deliberate or accidental misinterpretation of myth, or almost an attempt to create a certain type of myth. But in relation to Irish mythology, I suppose the Red Hand is associated in heraldry with Irish Norman families, and in particular, let me see, particular families like the de Burghs, and then later on the O'Neills, who would be Ireland's kind of, I suppose, only dynastic family, if you like. Much older. There's all the, I suppose, mythological associations with Nuada of the Silver Hand, who's a character in mythology who loses his hand, but is also known as Nuada of the Red Hand. And let me see, a whole bunch of stuff. But unfortunately, guys, those books aren't in this house, and so I'm hoping to pick them up. I've actually got some books stored at my dad's house, so I'm hoping to get a wee run down to pick those up at some point, because I was going to show you the covers to them, and lots of stuff to do with hands in particular. But if you're any of you are particularly interested, if you want to have a wee look at you can find this on Wikipedia, I'm sure, the significance of what we call the Red Hand of Ulster in heraldry, in Irish and Northern Irish families, etc., and Irish Norman families. And I was even thinking about, well, maybe think about doing something in detail on this. You have things like the orcs of the White Hand in Lord of the Rings, for example, and just so unfortunately, I was really wanting to run through a whole bunch of that stuff, and had a few books that would have nicely illustrated some of that kind of stuff, but I don't have them. But tonight, so what I think I'll do is I'll keep all of that discussion for when I do have those books, just to give you. It'd be nice to actually give you some visual representations of that kind of stuff. But in terms of the hand, actually has lots and lots of different meanings in relation to symbology, if you like. It's a very ancient symbol, and if you think about cave paintings and Lascaux and stuff like that, it is very interesting, actually. But yeah, it has a few different meanings about the place, and I was going to say briefly just whether the hand is open, whether the hand is closed, other certain, I suppose, motions and gestures that you can make with the hand represent different things. So, but unfortunately, I said we're going to see a couple of things to do with the hand in this chapter. So I just thought I'd mention that. Unfortunately, I was all geared up to get these books and present them to you, and I don't have them here. So we'll try to get them for you for next time. There's everybody saying hello. Anyway, there's Lord Cronk saying hey, Bojack saying hello. Chris Gibson saying build bodies, don't you know? Was that the black stuff? Meal in the glass is what they call it, I suppose, over here. Tend to think of it that way. I'm wondering if that's what you're talking about. There we go, folks. So this chapter, I mean, it's quite a fast moving little chapter, and it's, as I said, it's dialogue heavy, and it's what would the word be? It's interrogative heavy, if you like. It's almost an interrogation. In a couple of different ways. It's a back and forth between Gurney Halleck and the smuggler who we're going to learn is Staban Tuick, who is, of course, Esmer Tuick's son, who we've met previously, and seemed to be a major player in terms of the politics and the politics of Arrakis, certainly within what was going on at the banquet scene in and around it. Excuse me. And I believe Esmer Tuick was I suppose, what's the word? Pivotal, and I think delivering, was it the missing carry-all? Wasn't that it? I think. Again, something that's resolved in and around the banquet scene. So we're going to meet his son here. And as I said, initially this epigraph, got to stop doing that, actually, sorry. As I said, we're going to find out, I think we'll pick up on it whenever we get to that part in the chapter, but really pertaining, I think, to the men, Gurney's men, and the men from Caladan in particular. And the joy of joys, we're going to get one of Gurney's songs in this chapter as well. So let's have a wee look. So it starts off with basically, so you're the great Gurney Halleck. the man said. And again, if we think about how Frank's running on with things, we very much had a bit of a discussion between Paul and Jessica as to how Gurney was probably dead. So we've shifted into this immediately. There he is. And that kind of kills that idea for us. And here he is, alive and well. In fact, we're going to pick up some of the threads of the narrative here within the next few chapters as we hit the halfway point. So you're the great Gurney Halleck, the man said. And Halleck, we're told, is staring across this round cavern office at the smuggler behind the metal desk. We're told the man wears blue robes, has a half tint of blue eyes, which apparently we're told that this is an indicator of off-planet foods in his diet. So the eyes of this individual aren't the full blue within blue within blue. They have what he describes as a half tint blue, and I suppose that's suggestive that this individual, who we're going to learn is Staban Tuick, as I said, his diet, there's plenty of other things in his diet that it's not completely saturated with spice. I suppose I think that's or either that or he hasn't been basically here long enough for that to work on his eyes, I suppose, enough of the off-world thing. But it's not quite the full blue within blue within blue, if you like. Oh, did I write down that he wore blue robes? It didn't say that. It says he wore Fremen robes. Apologies. There's me mixing up my words there. So he wore Fremen robes with a half-tinted blue eyes, suggestive of the off-planet foods in his diet. So the office that they're in, again, a little bit of mise-en-scene from Frank, which will duplicated a space frigate's master control center. And it kind of gives you, if we remember, the Barons kind of set up in a kind of frigate, if you like. And I wonder about this, why this, if you like. It duplicated a space frigate's master control center. Communications and view screens along a 30-degree arc of wall, remote arming and firing banks adjoining, and the desk formed as a wall projection, part of the remaining curve. There we go. So off we go. The smuggler, we're told then, says, "I am Staban Tuick, the son of Esmer Tuick." And Gurney replies then that you are the one that I owe thanks for the help we've received. And of course, Staban says, gratitude, sit down. So to business, in other words, I think. And we're told, I think, again, that this kind of, I suppose, I don't know, retrofuturism, if you like, a ship-type bucket seat emerged from the wall beside the screens, and Halleck sank onto it with a sigh, feeling his weariness. So Gurney's been through hell and back, and he's pretty tired, and we'll get that sense from him here. Yeah, I think it's time to get a good look at Gurney in this chapter, I think, and how he's feeling. So we know he's tired, certainly. We're going to see his temper at work in a bit. And he sees his own reflection. So we're told that the dark surface beside Tuick, Gurney sees his own reflection in the dark surface beside Tuick and scowled at the lines of fatigue. His lumpy face and the ink vine scar along his jaw writhed with the scowl. And I've just put a wee kind of that kind of reminds me a wee bit of Gully Foyle's tiger tattoo. Not to draw too many connections, just offhand. Not that I think it's any indicator of such, but it just reminds me of those kind of things, I suppose. The idea that the mark flares when an individual's angry, if you like. So we're told Halleck turned from his reflection, stared at Tuick, checks him out, sees the family resemblance, his father's heavy overhanging eyebrows, and the rock planes of his cheeks and nose. And again, it's one of those, I suppose, indicators. Often when we hear about how certain people sort of talk and the descriptions that they use within Dune, that there's an awful lot of sort of desert illusions, etc., within the actual sort of narrative and things that characters do within their action. And it does allude to a kind of who is the narrator of Dune. It's one of my favorite questions to ask, you know. Chris saying, so I go back to the Guinness thing. I believe it's an old advertising slogan for Guinness. I was introduced to it as a child with a little Ribena ad. What do we call that? I suppose some people take it with blackcurrant, don't they? Yeah. I don't drink it very often, to be honest with you, but it's not fizzy, I suppose. Yeah, it's one of those things where I sort of consider my opportunity to have a pint of Guinness or so tonight would be probably my last opportunity to have a pint for some time. So just with the way the world's working, so I just thought I would, yeah. Otherwise, I'm going quite enjoying my pink lemonade these days. Yeah, I'll tell you. I don't know if you've ever had it. It's much nicer. I think it's nicer. It's called Gillespie's. It's a Scottish stout. It's really nice if you can get it on draft. Quite hard to get. In fact, you never see it over here. Okie dokie. Right. So we got a wee bit of description of Staban Tuick. Interestingly enough, we're just really going to call Tuick Staban Tuick, really, from now on. And again, it was a name I suppose we would have used for his father. And I suppose also, before we go any further, this is another one of these pairings, isn't it? We have pretty much almost always these two characters. And so Halleck and Tuick, I think, are quite similar in some ways, though I think their differences are also brought out here. And we'll have a wee chat about them, I suppose. And it's interesting what each sees in the other man, I think. So your men, Halleck says, tell me that your father is dead, killed by the Harkonnens. And Tuick responds that by the Harkonnens or by a traitor, apparently amongst your people. And anger, we're told, overcomes part of Halleck's fatigue. And I suppose the interesting bit is how Halleck controls his anger, I suppose. And we wonder, I think, if you know what I mean, that he's just an ordinary guy in that sense. I don't imagine he has Bene Gesserit training or any of these kind of things, if you see what I mean. So his anger nearly causes a problem in this chapter, I think. I'll point out when it happens. And I think Tuick manages him quite well. So Halleck, Gurney saying, can you name the traitor? Tuick says, not too sure. And then Gurney's quite open and honest with him. He straight away offers up that Thufir thought that the traitor was the Lady Jessica. And Tuick responds, the Bene Gesserit witch. Perhaps, but as he points out, how it is now a Harkonnen captive. So just quickly, that was the running sort of thought for Gurney, that again, the plan within the Duke's household. Oh goodness, excuse me, there's the doggies at the doghouse. And again, Tuick thinks perhaps, but interesting, what I wanted to point out is it's the use of the word witch. So Halleck calls her the Lady Jessica. Thufir thought it was the Lady Jessica. Tuick goes there with the Bene Gesserit witch. And we're going to hear the term witch a good few times over this chapter. At least 3 or 4 times, maybe more. And it's a phrase that Tuick keeps using, but then ultimately Gurney uses it as well. At this point, Gurney's term for Lady Jessica is Lady Jessica. He doesn't say Thufir thought it was the witch. Lady Jessica, if you see what I mean. And it's one of those things that we like to point out is, I suppose, terms of scorn, if you like. terms of derision. Oh goodness, hang on. Within the Bene Gesserit, the way different groups often look at each other, and we've already had a bit of sort of slagging of the Bene Gesserit from the Duke's household, from the Duke, the witches, if you like. So here's the Smugglers using it as a term as well. Excuse me 1 second. Oh. There we go. Just pulling that window closed a wee bit. Oh, it's been a lovely sunny day here, and now it's raining. Oh, sort of got all very grey and misty as we approach midsummer. Pardon me. So the Bene Gesserit witch. And of course, we're told how it is now a Harkonnen captive. Halleck says, I heard, it appears we have a good deal more killing ahead. And yeah, Tuick's response, here we go, is quite interesting, and not what Gurney Halleck expects at all, I think. And again, from the phrase, if we just dial back a few seconds, your men tell me your father is dead, killed by Harkonnens, perhaps. But the point is, I think that Gurney sees a kindred spirit, if you see what I mean. I've lost family to the Harkonnen, etc. So have you. At this point, Chewik's not too sure, but seems to be a good deal more of killing ahead. Chewik's response is, "We will do nothing to attract attention to us." And again, as I said, not what Gurney expects at all, and he stiffens at this. But Chewik basically cuts him off, tells him this: "You and your men we've saved, and you're welcome to sanctuary amongst us." We can use an interesting phrase here, and I'm going to call it a euphemism. We can use good men. And I suppose, as much as that's a term that we've heard before, we're not going to sort of really hear it again. It's going to switch, particularly in terms of Gurney, I think, to fighting man, that kind of thing. And is that what we really mean by good men? We could use a few good men. However, and this immediately, I suppose, comes with a warning, or it's a warning, it's a threat. Take it whatever way you like. It's quite hostile in that sense. And here's this, I suppose, but in that sense, will destroy you out of hand if you make the slightest open move against the Harkonnens. Excuse me. And again, Halleck's not getting this at all. But they killed your father, man. And Chewik's response is, of course, perhaps. So it's an unknown at this point. Of course, we know that it's Dr. Yueh, the traitor, that's killed Esmer Chewik, and he also killed Mapes as well. So, but they killed your father, man. Perhaps to Chewik, this is an unknown. And if so, my father's answer to those who act without thinking. And here we go. So I think this is one of these interesting things. If we look at how Frank's making these pairings within this chapter, Chewik has a lot, I think, that's similar to Gurney here. And this is an example. So, well, actually, more likely, it's this. We're told this is his father's answer to those who act without thinking. But a stone is heavy, and the sand is weighty. But a fool's wrath is heavier than both. Now, this isn't. We're going to run with it. This is an Orange Catholic Bible quotation, and it happens to be. It's again one of these real-world quotations where Frank's changed just a little bit of it. Let me just look it up for you. So this is Proverbs 27:3. Proverbs. Let's see. There we go. And so the actual, again, depending on your translation, is stone is heavy and sand a burden, but a fool's provocation is heavier than both. So again, what we have here is slightly changed. The stone is heavy and the sand is weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than both. A fool's anger, I suppose. And again, but a fool's provocation. Let me have a wee look, see how provocation, aggravation, and wrath is heavier than them both. There you go, is actually King James Version. So there we are. Depending just on the version you have, provocation, wrath seems to be slight. Well, I'd say they mean very different things, but there you go. So this is a characteristic of Gurney Halleck, isn't it? So here we have Gurney being a bit, what? Come on, and he's again just Chewik's response isn't what he's expecting. He's stiffening to this guy. Well, I don't understand. They killed your father. I don't think they did, but well, not too sure. Perhaps, but if this is the case, this is what my father would say to somebody who acts out of anger, who acts without thinking. So a stone is heavy and the sand is weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than both. In other words, I don't want an angry fool. That's much, much worse than all. There we go. So it's a quality of Gurney to sort of quote people, to quote the OC Bible to people, and we often hear people quoting it because something from the Orange Catholic Bible, because it's something they've remembered Gurney saying. So here we have, in a sense, I suppose, Gurney's being fed a bit of his own medicine, if you like, and arguably, therefore, it should be a language that he would respond well to, if you see what I mean. He understands the meaning. You mean to do nothing about it then? And sneered. And again, I've just put here, he's being a bit stupid. He's being a bit angry. He's not thinking correctly. Pardon me. Now, you mean to do nothing about it then? Chewick's response is this: you did not hear me say that. That's not what I said. Merely that I will protect our contract with the guild. Here we go. And the guild requires that we play a circumspect game and that there are other ways to destroy a foe. So this is that we're going to see, I suppose, various groups within the Dune universe have contracts, have deals with the guild, or form part of an overwatch or groups or committees, if you like. And in fact, at the beginning of the next chapter, we're going to find out a bit about how being emperor works, if you like. So it's not about I don't want revenge, really. It's just that I've got to protect our contract with the guild. We must be circumspect in what we do. And again, it's about knowing. It's the same, I suppose. We think about Duke Leto's response to the smugglers, knowing that they're theirs. Yeah, we can use this. We can, we just want our cut, and we have to imagine that pretty much that's how things work with the smugglers. But yeah, we're going to find out. I suppose they're a separate power group. They're an entity within the power structure of Arrakis. But what they think their position is and what they actually are, I think, as much as Chewick comes across in some ways as quite smart, quite wise, he's also ignorant of a number of things. Doesn't ask necessarily the right questions, and has underestimates the Fremen incredibly, and their role, I suppose, in the general scheme of things. So he's an interesting character, Staban, I suppose, in that he's meant, again, possibly we've got a hint that his father's quite competent. There's Brad saying, "Morning all." Morning, Brad. Thanks for joining us. How you doing? Are you still in lockdown, Brad? Hope that's ended for you. But I hope you're feeling well, and thank you for joining us. I'm feeling very nasal. In fact, I tell you what, I'm going to hit mute a quick second, and if anybody's got any questions or anything for me, I'm going to quickly blow my nose. I'll be right back. And we're back. Sorry about that. My ears popped when I did that. The weather's all over the place at the minute, and I think it's going to get a bit stormy here, or it feels like we should have some lightning, that kind of thing. If you like, we've kind of had quite a hot day, then it's gone all grey, very sort of thick, misty rain. Irish rain type 27, I think. Brad saying get out tonight, hopefully. Excellent. It's good to get out and about. We were out for a wee bit today, actually, Brad, myself and the wife, and we hardly get out at all these days. It was just nice, not for long. But so we need to protect our contract with the guild. The guild requires we play a circumspect game. There's other ways to destroy a foe. And Halleck, okay, he's got his interest again. So here we go. Chewick says the following. Indeed. Yeah, right. If you have a mind to seek out the witch, there you go, have at it. But I warn you, you're probably too late. We doubt that she's the one anyway. So we have to ask, why do you doubt that, I suppose? Halleck's response is that Howard made few mistakes. And I've written next to that, no. He's made them aplenty. And possibly, maybe in the Dune universe, Halleck was an all singing, all dancing mentat, but since we've met him, he's made loads of mistakes. So I suppose we could think about sort of rumors and misconceptions within this chapter. So Halleck made, Chewik says in response to this, well, he allowed himself to fall into Harkonnen hands. So the question I've asked here with this response is that Halleck made a few mistakes. No, he allowed himself to fall into Harkonnen hands. So the question is, allowing himself to be captured. That's a mistake, is what Chewik is suggesting. And I'm kind of writing down. So what should he do? Is the correct thing to kill yourself for your house? The fact that he's been taken alive. Should have what's the suggestion here? Should have Howard killed himself, etc., died fighting, this kind of thing. And why should anybody think that way? So Halleck says, you think he's the traitor, Howard? And again, Chewik's thinking here suggests, he says, well, that's academic. We think the witch is dead. Third time we've heard the word witch from him. And then this is followed with, and again, this is a curious statement if we follow this line of thinking. He says, at least the Harkonnens believe that she's dead. Halleck says, you seem to know an awful lot about the Harkonnens. Hints and suggestions, rumors and hunches. If you wanted to give this chapter a title, that would be a good one, I think. Hints and suggestions, rumors and hunches. Has a bit of a Lord of the Rings type of feel about it, doesn't it, I think? Or a Hobbit type of feeling, I suppose. And Halleck says, well, we are 74 men. So by the end of the chapter, that number is going to change. And if you wish us to enlist with you, then you must believe that our Duke is dead. Because there's no way we'd enlist with you, is what he's saying. If we thought that for one instant that Duke Leto was alive, there's no way that we would consider enlisting with you. And of course, we're given the matter-of-fact thing from Chewik is that his body has been seen. So this is the bit that if we follow this thread, Leto is dead because his body has been seen. That's it. However, Jessica's body hasn't been seen. Neither has Paul's, if you see what I mean. And the Harkonnens are convinced that they're dead. Excuse me. Of course, Gurney asks, and the boy too, young Master Paul. He starts to get a bit choked up. He tries to swallow. There's a lump in his throat. Emotion. And Chewik says, well, according to the last word we had, they were lost. So that's a no. If nobody's seen the bodies, so they were lost apparently with his mother in a desert storm. So being lost in a desert storm is not getting killed, but we're told again, Chewik says it's likely not even their bones will be found. So it kind of goes against the whole, I believe what I have. We got there already? Has he said that I believe what I see with my own eyes? I'm not too sure we've got to that bit yet. Sorry. Oh, well, yeah, it suggests that his body has been seen. So there's no definitive response for Gurney Halleck here. There's no bodies. They've been last seen flying into a storm. And that's it, that nobody could possibly survive that kind of thing. Well, it's a sign for hope, isn't it? I suppose. Certainly, I think with the level of dedication that a character like Gurney, all of the various lieutenants around the Atreides would have, I think they would consider that they're not dead until they see the body, But Gurney's response then, so the witch is dead then. They're all dead. And this time Gurney uses the term witch. So we've had, again, I think about our plans, always our iterations, plans within plans within plans and stuff. We've had Chewik use the language witch, witch, witch 3 times. Gurney starts off by referring to the Lady Jessica by her title and name. By the end of it, when he assumes that she's dead, he refers to her as a witch. I think it's a little bit telling, I suppose. And of course, this derogatory term that we have for the Bene Gesserit, implying magical sorcery and all sorts of things. I suppose it's a title out of the supernatural, isn't it? It's an interesting one in a world of science fiction. So Chewik tells us that to cap this all off, he tells us that, and the beast Raban will sit once more in a seat of power here on Dune. And I mean, it just made a wee note there that's we don't often hear Arrakis, up to this point anyway, referred to as Dune, even though that's the title of the book. Now, bear with me a wee second. I wanted to look something up. No. Excuse me. No. Let's have a wee look. Now, just double check this, I suppose. So the Beast Raban will sit once more in the seat of power here on Dune. And of course, Halleck replies, the Count Raban of Lankerville? Yes. So that's what I was just curious about, was the term Lankerville. I was wondering if that was an allusion to something. And I really do think it is, but I can't think of what it is I'm thinking on. Possibly some fantasy or science fiction world, maybe, or town. I'm not too sure. Something pings in my head about it. I don't. But let's have a wee look anyway, just to check. No, there's nothing there on it within the terminology of the Imperium. Let's just very quickly check. So, Count Glossu Raban, whose dates are given as 10132 to 10193. This is an appendix for the Almanac on Ashraf, which is selected excerpts of the noble houses in Dune. So there's not many people here in this. There's only about 7. So Raban is the last entry here. Glossu Raban, we're told, is the Count of Lankerville, was the eldest nephew of Vladimir Harkonnen, Glossu Raban, and Feyd-Rautha Raban, who took the name Harkonnen when chosen for the Siridar Baron's household, were legal sons of the Siridar Baron's youngest demi-brother, Abulard. Abulard renounced the Harkonnen name and all rights to the title when given the sub-district governorship of Raban Lankerville, and Raban was a distaff name. So there we go. That's all there is really on that one. Right. So of course this is getting Gurney's interest, isn't it? Because there's a score to settle here, and it's excuse me, between Gurney and Raban. So we're told that it took him a moment to put down the upsurge of rage that threatened to overcome him. And when he speaks, he's speaking with a panting breath. So he's nearly, again, Gurney's anger, his rage is just, I suppose he's had a hard day at work, if you see what I mean. But his rage is getting the better of him. And I've made a wee note next to this that ultimately most of this is what we call Spanningsbogen. Which we know is that kind of, where are we? It must be in here, surely. I suppose, what is it? The desire, what is it? The difference, is it the desire for reaching for a thing and touching around, delaying that desire, if you like. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. We'll have to encounter that word at some point when we find it. Excuse me. So Gurney says, I have a score to settle of my own against Raban. I owe him for the lives of my family. He rubs the scar, and for this. So this ink-vined scar, of course. And Truick says, one does not risk everything to settle a score prematurely. He frowns, we're told, watches the play of muscles along Halleck's jaw, and that there's a sudden withdrawal in the man's shed-lidded eyes. And it's almost that Gurney's not there. If you know what, if that kind of, when people who are in full violence mode, they're just not there. This kind of thing, I think. But he does come back. He takes a deep breath. I know, and a deep breath. So there's something about him. I suppose Halleck feels that Raban's here, revenge is at hand, but we don't want to risk everything, as Truick puts it, just to settle a score prematurely. So it's probably just more than a score, I would imagine, to Gurney. And we're finding out a little bit about this. But here comes Truick's offer, basically. He says, you and your men can work out passage off Arrakis. So I dare say you don't want to stay. Your men don't want to stay. You just probably want to get out of here. Your house, So passage off Arrakis is going to cost money. You can work that out by serving with us. There's many places to. I suppose he's about to suggest all the different worlds that they could go to within the Empire, but Gurney cuts him off. And here we go. I release my men from any bond to me. With Raban here, I stay. And I thought this was kind of interesting. What I've written underneath it is no, excuse me, no responsibility to his men. And in terms of Halleck's thinking, he's got 74 men under his command here, and he hears that somebody who's done him real harm in the past is here. Sod them. That's it. It's not quite that bad, I suppose. But I release my men from any bond to me. You're on your own, guys. And you dare say that Halleck's men would probably know, we're with you, boss. This kind of thing. So Turek, again, we're getting this in your mood. Not sure I want you to stay. Halleck, again, if you think about this, this is Halleck's being a bit belligerent here. And his next sentence is, "You doubt my word," and it's one of those you talk. It's aggressive, isn't it? And Turek's response is a kind of no, and I think the way Turek manages him here, I think it is an attempt to preempt violence. Halleck, you get the suggestion, is a violent man, and if he did doubt his word, that's enough to then, I think. And his anger, his rage, etc. As I said, he's not having a good day. So he kind of is moving between anger and reason, I think, almost to a degree. So here's the reason, I suppose. You saved me from the Harkonnen, and I gave my loyalty to the Duke for no greater reason. But for exactly the same reason, I think. I'll stay on Arrakis with you or with the Fremen. And that's kind of well, if I can't stay with you, I'll go to the Fremen kind of thing. And it's not much of a, I suppose, it's not really any sense of a threat. But if you don't have a use for me, I'm sure the Fremen will take me. So, and of course, this is if you don't have a use for me, you're the great Gurney Halleck is how this chapter begins. He's the great Gurney Halleck. He's not just supposedly anybody, and I'm sure that Turek would think of him as an asset to his smuggler operation. So with you or with the Fremen, another wee interesting thing now what Turek says is whether thought is spoken or not, it is a real thing, has power. You might find that the line between life and death amongst the Fremen to be too sharp and too quick. And again, Halleck closes his eyes briefly, feeling weariness, we're told, tiredness again, and we get this quotation from the OC Bible. Where is the Lord who led us through the lands of deserts and of pits? Again, this is another one. This is Jeremiah 2, 6. Let me just bring this up. Again, let's have a wee look. Let's go to the King James one. That'll do. It seems just to see if it matches, because the last one did. I just tend to read the first. You can use BibleHub.com if you're looking for just sort of Bible references, this kind of thing, and it tends to present all the different versions of them and some cross references, which is quite handy. So, where is the Lord who led us through the lands of deserts and of pits? He murmured. Now, this I think is from Jeremiah 2, 6. Neither said they, where is the Lord that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, that led us through the wilderness, through a land of deserts and of pits, through a land of drought and of the shadow of death, through a land that no man passed through and where no man dwelt. So there we go. Let me just see if there's, yeah. So it's pretty much a truncated version. So it's Jeremiah 2, 6. There we go. And again, it shows, I suppose, a bit of a. We're getting to look at these two men a wee bit. And essentially, if we look at it, Halleck is a commander of the Atreides. Chirrut is a commander of the smugglers. That they're of similar ilk. They would probably be in charge of a similar amount of men, something like that. Possibly, Halleck would be in charge of a lot more, being being a senior lieutenant in a major house. We'll just catch up with some of your comments for a wee second, folks. There's Matt S. saying they should have fled to beyond the known galaxy with Chom help. But they, I think whenever they've been attacked, they didn't have their piggy bank, Sandy. If you see what I mean. Yeah, getting out of there would be very good, I think. Joseph Smith saying, howdy, Joseph. And fact and non-verbal, hell hath no fury like Gurney scorned. Yeah, Gurney, it is. There's a sense that Gurney could erupt at this guy, I think, and he's very, very tired and he's very angry, and I do think it's interesting if we think about other characters controlling their fear, this kind of thing. He does a pretty good job of controlling his anger here. It sort of comes out and takes over a little bit of him, if you like. That's the way it's presented. But he's a bit. I think he's going to go. I think Halleck would be a bit monovision in terms of his revenge. I don't think he would be. I think he would be singular in his goals, if you see what I mean. And especially Chirrut, the way Herbert writes, it's just no. I kind of just calm down. Let's take it easy. It's nothing to do with whether I doubt your word. This kind of thing. So Halleck saying, "You save me from the Harkonnen." Talks about giving his loyalty to the Duke for no greater reason. I'll stay on Arrakis with you or with the Fremen. So as I said, sorry, backtracking a wee bit. The comment actually about what Chirrut says, I think is interesting here. Whether thought is spoken or not, it is a real thing. It's tangible, has power. You may find life between life and death amongst the Fremen to be too sharp, too quick. And just in terms of that little sentence about thoughts, whether they're spoken or not, that they're real things. I was wondering if that's this little speech by Chirrut is that the inspiration. I was just wondering for the weirding modules with the explanation that Paul gives in the David Lynch film is quite similar, I think, isn't it? Some thoughts have a form, this kind of thing, if you see what I mean. Man, it's never come to Dune. Yeah, we're going to get to that bit, actually. It's the way it's presented, I think, Matt, is very funny. Silly Leto, never go any place in the title of the book. There are worms there. Yeah, the old Spaceballs read the book, gag love. I do like Spaceballs. That's a good one. Yeah. I don't know. At the same time, it's a good story, but if we start working things out, it can be a bit problematic. I still think, though, in terms of how we're being presented information, and it's something that it's something we've never had answered, is that there is a narrator who's assembled these historical documents at the beginning of each of these chapters, and then that there is another sort of omniscient sort of narrative going on, this third person. And it does hint that I don't know. It hints of a sort of directing the narrative a certain way, and that there's probably a lot more things. It is a story, I suppose, but there's a truth to it that's not quite obvious. Leto's not the great guy he's presented, I think, and we've been reading this book pretty carefully. I'm sure you all agree. He's not a nice guy at all. The moment that made me laugh really hard in the book is the moment where Leto and Howard are kind of having a wee quick. It's a very quick moment, but it's just kind of like do you think it's possible we had Jessica's mother, or Jessica's parents murdered sometime? That maybe she's been coming to avenge us, all these years later, and it's that they discuss the possibility. So they're I don't know, the adventures of Leto and Howard in a real, I'd say they're quite a dodgy pair, to be honest with you, as dodgy as everyone else. Anyway, watch the DVD, or was it a VHS? It's hagiographic. hagiographies. Saints. Yeah. Well, we get as we move forward, Matt. We get hagiographies, don't we? Within it, we get a range. We start to get pretty sure there's all sorts of open up in the Dune series, but pretty much solidly for the first book of Dune, it's a range of everything is written by Irulan. I'm pretty sure. I don't think there's a single entry that's not by Irulan. Yeah. We get to the ecology of Dune, the first quotation, if you like, that's presented at the top of a chapter in that sense by someone who's not Irulan is actually by Pardo Kynes, first first planetologist of Arrakis. That's at the beginning of Appendix 1. I'm not too sure if we're aware of the author of Appendix 2. So yeah, and again, it's the way the whole thing is presented, I suppose. I think it's a curious question because over time it does sort of suggest in the narrator. It's I think one of the possible interpretations as well for Daniel and Marty ultimately. Look forward to getting down that road some years in the future. Dear oh dear. So yeah, again we've kind of had I suppose with Halleck and Tuick that they think they know certain things. They're party to certain parts of information. Some of it's rumor, some of it's speculation. Is so and so dead, etc. So Tuick responds to Halleck's quote. So they've each fielded an Orange Catholic Bible quotation at the other at this point. Tuick says that move slowly, and the day of revenge will come. Speed is a device of shaitan. Cool your sorrow. You're and cool your sorrows. We've I can nearly talk. Sorry, we've the diversions for it. There are three things that ease the heart, if he says, and of course he tells us what they are. And I think this is quite interesting. You can come up with your own three here, maybe, but for Tuick, the three things that ease the heart while working in spice smuggling operations on Arrakis are water, green grass, and the beauty of women. And I put that kind of reminded me on the speech from Conan, where they ask Conan what is best in life. What is it? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentations of their women. And I think the Conan speech is based in, I think, on something said by Genghis Khan, isn't it? It's a real. I don't think it's quite the same. Let's see. Genghis Khan, the greatest happiness is to vanquish your enemies, to chase them before you, to rob them of their wealth, to see them. Hang on. I'll get the rest of it. So here it is. What is it? The greatest happiness is to vanquish your enemies, to chase them before you, to rob them of their wealth, to see those dear to them bathed in tears, to clasp to your bosom their wives and daughters. There you go. I don't know. I'd probably go with love of a good woman, a decent book, and a good guitar. Something like. I wouldn't say crushing people and destroying them would be at the top of my list of what things are good in life. Not that we have any of those here, but I suppose just jokingly it reminded me of it. But water, water eases the heart. Water's of importance here, which is quite interesting, I suppose. Green grass. Yep. And the beauty of women. So he's telling Halleck, we've got all of these things here. We have water, we have grass, and we have women. There you go. And of course, Halleck's response, aggressive, juvenile, if you like. I would prefer the blood of Rabban Harkonnen flowing about my feet. And he stares at Tuick and asks him, do you think that day will come? So it's quite, I don't know, again, it's kind of, coffee, donuts, glass of water, prostitute. No, the blood of my enemies upon my feet. It's a wee bit hyperbolic. It's a bit silly, I think. And it does go with the character, I suppose. He's meant to be really angry, etc. But he would definitely prefer the blood of Rabban Harkonnen flowing about his feet. So Quite interesting. He says, do you think this day will come? Turek's response, I think, is a good one. I have little to do with how you'll meet tomorrow. I can only help you with how you meet today, I suppose. That kind of thing. It's, nobody can really say what will happen till tomorrow, if you like. And Halleck basically then says, okay, then I'll accept your help and I'll stay until the day you tell me to avenge your father and all the other. And again, it's almost as if he's away on another rant, if you know what I mean. It does. I think it's quite funny. It's like tea, coffee. No, the blood of Baron, of Raban Harkonnen around my feet. Oh, okay. Well, tomorrow's another day, isn't it? Yes, and one day you'll say the word, and I shall slaughter all these people to avenge your father. And it's a bit much, isn't it? It's a bit. Would you just take a chill pill, I suppose? So Turek says, and again, his language shifts here. Of course, what he's looking for is good men. And he starts to call Halleck something else here. Listen to me, fighting man. And his face apart suddenly like a weathered stone. My father's water, I'll buy that back myself with my own blade. So again, I don't really need you to avenge my father for me, this kind of thing. And I don't know about you guys, but I get the sense that he's pretty annoyed with Halleck at this point. It's like dealing with a petulant child, if you see what I mean. And ultimately, I think he's making an assessment of Gurney Halleck to the point where I would consider him possibly as Turek. Is he too violent, too dangerous to keep around, too assuming, possibly? Having said, I shall avenge your father. I've just met you. I suppose it's a bit like one of those things we talk about, the Atreides and their motif, is it that, oh no, sorry, I'm thinking on Paul talking to the Bene Gesserit, isn't it? You take an awful lot upon yourselves, don't you? It's something a bit similar, I thought. It's kind of, I've just met you, but we shall avenge, together, It's a bit, and whereas someone going, no, not really. I'd rather just deal with this myself. So Turek's really just, I'll take my own revenge when and where if it need be. But I get the sense that he's a bit annoyed with Halleck, and we get Halleck's thoughts, Gurney's thoughts on Turek here. And I think it's quite. I don't know what to think of Gurney after this, I suppose. But in that moment, we're told Staban reminds him of Leto. Okay, he's a leader of men. He's courageous, secure in his own position and his own course. He was like the Duke before Arrakis. And the wee question I've asked here for myself again is well, how different was he before Arrakis? Was he competent? I don't know. We get to see a little bit of him, do we? Actually, I think we do. We capture a little bit of Leto before he leaves. But I genuinely thought that I think Leto's character throughout Dune is quite consistent. As I don't think he's admirable at all. Excuse me. But yeah, it's almost a little bit of, I don't know. There's something about Gurney that seems the need. I don't know. Servitude is the word that I'm going to use, I suppose. Do you wish my blade beside you? Gurney asks, and Turek sits back and studies him. Silently relaxed. Again, Gurney pushes it. Do you think me as a fighting man? As opposed to maybe a good man. And Turek's assessment really of Gurney here is, I suppose, he's the only one of the Duke's major lieutenants to escape all of this. He's the only one left standing, or so it appears. In fact, no, that's the case, isn't it? And he says that there's a hint of admiration here, I think, from Turek. His assessment of Gurney: you're the only one of the Duke's lieutenants to escape. Your enemy's overwhelming. Yet you rolled with him. You defeated him the way we defeat Arrakis. And Gurney, what do you mean? Well, Turek says, well, we live on sufferance down here, Gurney Halleck. Arrakis is our enemy. That's interesting. I think that echoes a speech if anybody's watched David Lean's Lawrence of Arabia, I think that echoes a speech about what the Arabs think of the desert in that movie. Really reminds me of it, actually, that it's something to do with the Arabs are friends of the desert, and it's not quite that simple at all. I think it's the way Lawrence looks at it and the way the Arabs look at the desert is not the same at all. Yeah. Must watch that again, actually. It was I've only seen Lawrence of Arabia a couple of times. Lawrence is an interesting guy, I suppose. One of what I like to refer to as dangerous classicists. You got to watch out for them. You know, they can get up to all sorts. There we go. Let's see. So we live at Sufferance down here. Gurney Halleck, Arrakis is our enemy. So we've got to deal with the planet one. And Gurney gets this one enemy at a time. Is that what you mean? Yeah, that's it. Turek says. So is that the way Gurney asks him that the Fremen make out? And Turek says perhaps. Gurney says, you said I might find the Fremen life too tough that they live in the desert in the open. Is that why? Again, he's still probing Turek for information here. And the one thing I've made a big note of here, right next to Turek's name, is Turek is not a Fremen. And big letters and made it red of he's not a Fremen at all. Who knows? Here we go. This is the Smugglers. Now, I'm not too sure about this. We'll have a wee chat about it maybe. But either I think some of what Turek says here, my at the end of this, the little thing that I've written down is he's either wrong, ignorant, or he's lying. So here's what Turek says: who knows where the Fremen live? For us, it's the Central Plateau is no man's land. But I wish to talk about, and again, he's trying to get off this. Gurney cuts him off again. Gurney says, I'm told that the guild seldom routes spice lighters in over the desert, but there's rumors that you can see bits of greenery, and we've heard this from the Atreides before, here and there, if you know where to look. And rumors, Turek sneered. And he's kind of annoyed, I suppose. I again, that's what I get in a sense of that. Here we are, we've saved your backside. You keep asking about these people. We're the ones helping you now, and I think that comes out in his conversation here. Rumors, and he sneers at them. And we've had quite a few of them here today. Do you wish to choose now between me and the Fremen? This is the choice. So, and again, it's kind of rumor versus reality, isn't it? So Turek says that we have a measure of security. We've got our own siege, carved out of rock, our own hidden basins. We live the lives of civilized men. The civilized men who appreciate water, green grass, and the beauty of women. If you see what I mean. The Fremen are a ragged band. I've put no. Or sorry, the Fremen are a few ragged bands. No. So, and that we use them as spice hunters. And I kind of get no. So if that's Turek's understanding, excuse me, of the Fremen, once again he's mistaken in his assessment of the Fremen. And this is another group that uses the Fremen for their own purposes. We use them as spice hunters, but really not being understood that they're actually being used by the Fremen themselves, I think. So the relationship between, I suppose, the guild, the smugglers, and the Fremen, that there's a connection there. And the smugglers, I suppose, are the middlemen in that triumvirate, if you like, and really don't know too much about the workings of the guild, and they don't know too much about the workings of the Fremen. But I'd assume that this is the main sort of way that their business, I suppose, works between these groups, maybe, Factor Robert Tangent, the movie The Northman is Conan on steroids, says Factor. I'll look forward to seeing that. It looks quite full. I just, my only comment about it, Factor, is I thought it looked a bit full on, super violent, and Conan on steroids, and I'm just I don't know, a bit sick of violence at the minute. But I don't know. I could probably handle a good couple of hour movie. but it does look very good. I thought it looked very, from what I've seen of the trailers. I look forward to seeing it. Yeah. Watergrass girlfriend, says Matt. Yes, this is, well, yeah, absolutely. I can relate to that. We need water to live, don't we? We need grass. And heterosexual males need girlfriends, I suppose, as do. Oh, goodness. Yeah, we'll not even go there. Yeah, everybody needs a girlfriend. I suppose lesbians need girlfriends too, don't they? Excuse me. The women must not be an impediment to our gardens. Gurney has a different attitude from Paul. Dune is not Paul's enemy. Maybe just being deceitful to get to Gurney, man. Yeah, there's. I suppose there's. I think a bit of manipulation going on here between the two. Halleck is really determined to get as much information. It's excuse me. There's a lot of questions within this chapter from Halleck. Not all of them get answered, I suppose, but also when Tudyk wants to move things along, I suppose Halleck cuts him off a couple of times, again, sort of pursuing information, Excuse me. Thank you very much. Right. I'm going to pause a wee quick second, folks, and run to the loo and blow my nose again. We'll be right back. In fact, I can hit pause down here, can't I? So give us a wee second and we'll keep. There we go. That was a successful break, folks. Thanks very much for your patience. I managed to grab another tin of Guinness there as well. Let's just see. Maybe just being deceitful to get to Gurney. Yeah, there is a wee bit of manipulation. I suppose it's a bit of verbal sparring going on, and ultimately Tudyk does want something, I think, from Gurney here. And Gurney kind of wants something. I suppose Gurney's got something from Tudyk for him and his men, which is sanctuary. And the chance to wait for another day to get Rabat, to take revenge, it's been because of the release for Valhalla, etc. Yeah, fact, tell you what, very quickly. Oh, let me see. Yeah. I've just got a few of these just I grabbed from my wee shelf on the landing there. But you get all sorts of things within. These are really nice for anybody who wants to get into this kind of stuff. We've got this is the Saga of the Volsungs. Penguin Classics brought out a bunch of these previously, including Beowulf, the Elder Edda, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, which I picked up. The Wanderer, I didn't pick it up because I'd already got a copy. Things like the Elder Saga. But what I can recommend, if anybody's interested in this kind of thing, There's a little bit of blurb here from Seamus Heaney on the cover. It says, "Here is the poetry of the North Atlantic, a testimony to the human spirit's ability not only to endure what fate may send it, but to be renewed by the experience." So this is the sagas of the Icelanders with a preface by Jane Smiley. And this is how I was engaging in some of this stuff a wee while back. And it's a beautiful book, by the way. In the America, this is $25, Canada $31, in the UK it's $14.99. And look at that. And it's these are from penguinclassics.com. But what is it they call these? These are the deluxe editions. I don't know if you can see the paper, etc. And how far did I get? I got a good chunk of the way through, and I had to put it down. Now I will finish this, but simply put, it's incredibly violent. Really violent, and I've said this before. Stuff like the Iliad is outrageously violent. But in terms of stuff that I've read over the years, the Viking sagas, the sagas of the Icelanders and stuff, they're kind of at the top level of the violence, I suppose. And sometimes you need a break from it. But yes, if it's going to be Viking Norse beliefs, I would highly expect it, in fact, it to be ridiculously violent. To be honest with you. And it's a reimagining of Hamlet. It's not. Hang on. Is it anything that? What do you call our friend? Is it Sextus Grammaticus? Sextus Grammaticus. Hold on. Very quickly. Bum. Yeah. So Sextus Grammaticus. He's where's he? Danish. His dates are 1150 to 1220. As the author of the Gesta Danorum, the first full history of Denmark, from which the legend of Amleth would come to inspire the story of Hamlet by Shakespeare. Now, that's a bit of blurb that you'll get taught by English literature students. And if you know Shakespeare, if you know your Hamlet, if you know your classical literature, it's pretty much the Oresteia, isn't it? It's very similar to the Agamemnon, and the story of Hamlet's very much Orestes, I think. But there you go. But yeah, if anybody really, I'll just quickly show you these again. I mean, I got this book a few years back, but that's it there, and it really is. I mean, it's got tons of them. I think it's. Hang on, let me see. I think it's pretty much a very good. Let's see. So, yeah, this is the book for you. What have we got? All sorts sagas and tales. It's got Egil's saga, the saga of the people of Vansdal, the saga of the people of Laxerdal, Bolly Bollison's tale, the saga of Hankful Frey's Godi, saga of the Confederates, Gisli Surson's saga, the saga of Gunlag Serpent Tongue, saga of Ref the Sly, the Vinland sagas, the saga of the Greenlanders, and Eric the Red's saga, and then it's got a whole bunch of tales as well. As I said, if you're looking for some more of the individual ones, the Penguin Classics are. If this stuff can be a bit tricky to read, I think not so much. But Penguin Classics, they come with really good, indexes of names or indices of names and notes on the text. So it makes understanding them a lot better. And the Saga of the Volsungs is good as well. So, but the first one I ever read was Hafnal Saga when I was young. And I used to have a bunch of individual ones in the old Penguin Classics, and I lost them all. They all got destroyed. So it was very nice to get a few of those books. And again, it's something that I sort of say to a lot of people: if you like fantasy literature or horror literature, even this kind of thing, all your epics, your myths, and your sagas are right up your street. Absolutely. And just the trick is to if there are good translations and there are bad translations, There we go. Let me just catch up with your comments, folks, and we'll pick up where we left off. So reimagining how Dunk is incognito. Let's start our secret meeting. Meeting adjourned. Bojack says, "Fact novel, Saga of the Icelanders. I'll check it out. I don't think you could get in terms of value for money. I do like. I really and the papers. It's a beautiful book. So there are some editions of what are called Penguin Deluxe Classics. but the price to me, 14.99, that's nothing. It's really cheap, and you're getting your money's worth. And a lovely book. So I'm looking forward to finishing it. But I read a lot of this stuff, to be honest with you. Um, and then just with what the ancient world is a violent place, and the Viking stuff's not that ancient to me, but it's not a yeah. Sometimes it's nice to take a break, and that I'll go for something nice and happy in the science fiction world or something like that. Do Irish generally think that they are partially descended from Vikings? Dublin was a major Viking outpost. I thought Dublin is a Viking city, factor. Built in the 9th century, I believe, and it means Blackpool. There you go. At the time that I used to live in, when I would have finished my schooling in, is a Viking town. And I suppose Port of Larne, isn't it? I think is old name is Laharna. So no, yeah, there's a very strong association with the Vikings in Ireland, particularly Northern Ireland as well. And if you understand how the Vikings operate, they tend to hug coastlines or go down major river routes, if you like. So, excuse me, there are Irish Viking families. In fact, and an interesting thing is if you could argue that the history of Ireland is a history of invasions. And pretty much, yes, the Vikings came in and they created such a fuss. This is essentially what happened. Factor is that they stayed here, blended in with the population, became Irish, and that's what happened to the Vikings. This is generally what we do to our invaders: is we're nice to them and they just stay and become Irish. So if you look at the Normans, then the next invasion is the Normans, and you'll get these Norman Irish or Irish Norman or Hiberno Norman families. And again, their names are within Irish society today. So examples of those would be, I suppose, like de Burghs, de Lacey's, and then the more obvious ones are things like Fitzsimmons, Fitzhugh. The names with Fitz at the front would be Norman names. And then ultimately the problem then begins with the English, I suppose, because they didn't blend into our society. There you go. But even within our mythology, we have what's called the Book of Invasions, and it's a really interesting set of myths, I think. If you get the Book of Invasions, actually, you can actually start to see a literary thread of characters. So you have a character who's called Tuan within it, and you could argue that he's the Welsh Taliesin, kind of takes you to the I suppose the Britannic Merlin, if you like. But there's Ireland's invaded loads, and it's one of the things, I suppose, that allows a bit of diversity within our genetic pool. But they're absolutely people descended from Vikings. If you went via names, factor that anyone with a name that begins with Fitzgibbons, Fitzsimmons, Fitzpatrick, all of those are Irish Norman names. It's the Fitz that tells you that. But there you go. So no, it's absolutely true. Do the Irish generally think partially? So it depends on where you're from, I suppose. Pardon me. But plenty of bother with Vikings and stuff like that as well. Yeah. And again, I suppose the term Viking's probably closer to a term for a profession. I suppose if you want to talk about the Norse peoples, that's who they are. But a Viking is, I suppose, like a pirate, a buccaneer, if you like, Trainer. Trainers and McNeely's. Yeah, son of Neely. Says fact that my grandma was trainer, my dad was McNeely. Yeah. Yeah. They say there's an Irishman in every port, don't they? But yeah, some of our names are quite well known and widespread, I suppose. And we have, of course, things like Murphy as well. But there we go. So Guinness, I suppose that I'm drinking. There's I suppose old Ulaid names. We were talking about the Red Hand. I suppose the various associations, dynasties, and all. And one of them would have been the McGinnises. McGinnis, Guinness, etc. Ennis. All of those names come from that. And those are what you would call Cruin or Cruini of the Ulad. So Sloan, my family name, would be associated with them as well. But my name means host army or horde. So interesting, though, it's also supposed to be a patronymic, I think. So in other words, I think that the original Sloan is a male ancestor, if you like, to all Sloans, and his name would have been, I think, O'Sloey. Though here, what that is who knows. So there you go. So yeah, we were talking about the Earls of Ulster, the Red Hand earlier. The name de Burgh is a family that's associated with the Red Hand. That's an example of an Irish Norman family. I'd meant to show you something like this actually before, very quick. I wonder, did I bring it up again? But yes, I need to get better light in here. It's got quite gloomy. I keep meaning to. You can have a look at it, I suppose, on the internet if you want to have a look at Carrickfergus Castle and its construction. And it's if you're ever in Ireland, if you're ever in Europe, it's a castle to go visit. And of note, because it's pretty much in perfect condition, and it's in Carrickfergus, Northern Ireland. And it's a Norman castle with a full keep, and across the road from it is actually an impeccable Norman church as well. Pardon me. And I did have a wee thing on it, actually. I keep meaning to show it to you, but if you have a wee look at it on Wikipedia, you'll see it. Carrickfergus means rock of Fergus. There we go. And it's very much a Norman. That's it there, Carrickfergus Castle. It's very much a Norman castle as well. So no, the Vikings have a big influence in medieval Ireland, I suppose, post Dark Ages and during the Dark Ages, and the Normans then really with the invasion of Britain, if you like, in 1066. It doesn't take too long for the Normans to come over here. But Carrickfergus Castle, I think, its construction begins in the 11th. Either very late 11th or early 12th century. You know, foreigners less noble than our own foreigners. All I can say about it, Chris, is that thank goodness various people invaded us, because I'd hate to see what our population would look like without a little bit of different blood, if you see what I mean. There we go. Ireland's an interesting place. The whole Northern Ireland, and even Ulster's a different thing than Northern Ireland, but there are slight differences in the people from the north, and I suppose culturally there always have been. But it's not a bad place, to be honest, and most of the people aren't too bad, but it gets a bit mad here, I think. That's it. It's just craziness, you know. But don't send me down that road again, folks. I'll just get you know. But there we are. But yeah, that was a good wee. Yeah, the Sagas of the Icelanders, absolutely love that kind of stuff. I can't wait to see that film, by the way. Scattering of the Golden Path, the mingling of genes. Yeah, it's a good thing, you know. It really is. Yeah, let's have a wee look. Where do we get to? Hang on, one enemy at a time. Oh yes, they're sort of. He cuts him off, talks about the guild. Rumor versus reality. Chewik gives him a choice. So the Fremen, that sort of ends with there are a few ragged bands. No, and we use them as spice hunters. Oh, okay. Do you? So again, Chewik is either wrong, lying, ignorant, whatever. But something. What we know, we've got that sense of dramatic irony. We know that a few of these things aren't true. But from Gurney Halleck's point of view, what he's really interested in is, but they can kill Harkonnens. And here's the result, as I've put it. So Chewik says, do you want to know the result of them killing Harkonnens? Well, even now they're being hunted down like animals with lasguns because they've got no shields. They're being exterminated. I've scribbled in the word pogrom here at this point in my notes, but we're going to hit it again, actually. It's going to be used in the text anyway. So there we go. I was preempting that a wee bit. They're being exterminated. Why? Because they killed Harkonnens. Well, Gurney points out, and here we go. Rumor mill again. As I said, a good. What did I think it was? A good title for this chapter, was it? What Chewik said earlier. about all the rumor, etc., etc. I've lost it now. So was it Harkonnens they killed? What do you mean? That's an odd question, isn't it? Haven't you heard, Matt? That they may. Sorry, haven't you heard that they may have been Sardaukar amongst the Harkonnen? Of course, this is more rumors. So they're being exterminated. Gurney points out, but a pogrom, that's not like the Harkonnen. A pogrom is wasteful. Oh goodness, that's an interesting way of putting it, isn't it? What does he mean by that? A pogrom is wasteful. So the Sardaukar will exterminate an enemy. They'll wipe them out to the very last individual. But the Harkonnens wouldn't do that. Why? It's wasteful. People are workers. Simple as that, aren't they? Slaves. And so all around, I suppose, with Gurney's knowledge of the Harkonnens here. It's all a bit of a slightly inhuman comment, isn't it? Pogroms are wasteful. It's a bit matter of fact, but it's not a characteristic of the Harkonnen, I suppose. So it's the suggestion, the rumor. Excuse me. And I suppose at this point, Gurney says, haven't you heard there may have been Sardaukar amongst the Harkonnen? That suggests that Gurney hasn't met or encountered a Sardaukar troop up to this point, because if he had, I'm sure he would know the difference, if you see what I mean. So Chiric's again's response, I believe I see. So if we think about what we've been saying earlier about Paul and Jessica, it's a wee bit, I don't know, there's a wee bit of irony here. It's a bit hypocritical. I believe what I see with my own eyes. Make your choice, fighting man. Same term again, me or the Fremen. I promise you sanctuary, a chance to draw blood that we both want. Be sure of that the Fremen will offer you only the life of the hunted. So sanctuary, safety, and opportunity to kill them at the right time, if you like. That's what he's offering him. I think it's also interesting that the way Chirik puts it is he says that we have a measure of security, and I think that echoes something that the Atreides said, I think, earlier on. It certainly reminds me. I've heard that phrase before, a measure of security, and it really wasn't, was it? So it kind of reminded me of that in that sense. That's maybe not, So Gurney hesitates. He senses that there's wisdom and sympathy in Chiric's words, yet he's still troubled for no reason he could explain. Probably his anger, I think. So Chirik comes across as quite, I don't know, sagacious, almost wise. But there are a few wee things I'm not too sure about. He tells him to trust your own abilities. Whose decisions brought your force through the battle, eh? This kind of thing. Yours. So he's kind of bigging up Gurney, etc. He is the only one of all of these people to survive, seemingly. So it's you decide. And we get the first time Gurney says this, it must be. And it's a fatalistic sort of phrase, isn't it? The Duke and his son are dead? ? I've put the Duke, yes. Son, no. But again, the response from Chirrick here is that the Harkonnens believe it. And I have written next to it, no. So I believe what I see with my own eyes. It's a bit hypocritical. It's a bit paradoxical what Chirrick's saying here. The Harkonnens believe it. And where such things are concerned, I'm inclined to trust the Harkonnens. And he gives a grim smile. He says, I give them, it's about the only thing I trust. The only thing that I would actually trust them with, basically, is what he says. And I've just written down next to this. So the Harkonnens believe it, they're wrong. Where such things are concerned, I incline to trust the Harkonnens. And I've written down, well, that's a mistake, isn't it? Surely they're not trustworthy. What is it? False in one, false in all. This kind of idea. So why, if you understand that someone's fundamentally mistrustworthy, why would you trust them on anything? I incline to trust the Harkonnens on this kind, on death and murder, I suppose. That's what I've written. I suppose I've gone with why, but it's the only thing I would give them in trust, basically. I've written that down wrong. Let me just have a look at what he says here. Where are we? Number 29. The Harkonnens believe it. Where such things are concerned, I incline to trust the Harkonnens. A grim smile touched Chirrut's mouth, but it's about the only trust I give them. Okay. So I'll just it's one of those things again, isn't it? Where there's only one thing, there's only one way, only one thing that they're completely untrustworthy except for this. I'll go with that. It's a bit like the absolutes, if you like, of the Atreides or the dependencies of the Atreides. It's a fatal mistake, isn't it? It's a possibly fatal flaw. I certainly wouldn't trust the Harkonnens over anything. And the other thing that I would argue, I don't know what you think about this, guys, is that in relation to if we're dealing with, say, major houses and intrigue and all of this kind of thing, the suggestion is that I believe the Harkonnens when it comes to killing people, this kind of thing. But surely a part of that kind of intrigue, is making people think someone's dead, making people think someone's alive, hiding troop numbers, disguising your fatalities, your injuries, all of this, if you see what I mean, is part of subterfuge. So why would you believe them in anything, Chris Gibson says it was an assessment of Edward Bruce's Scottish army, and their own foreigners were the Anglo-Norman family, still known as the Old English in Tudor times, when they sided with the English. There's Guillermo Solari saying, hello, Doc. Hi, Guillermo. How you doing? Thanks for joining us. Less noble than our own foreigners. It's a good one. It's about, I don't know, you get the concept within Greek society of the Xeno, if you understand it, and mathematics. The alien, if you like. It's one of the things actually I've been scribbling down. Some ideas for the science fiction station. I've been thinking about kind of trying to develop a set of lectures or something, but I suppose ultimately they would become long programs if that's the style that I'm delivering them in, But yeah, one of the things I've written down, I suppose I've been looking at the ideas that have been popping on the board, or just broad categories, if you like, things like the poetics of science fiction, history of science fiction in detail, utopias, dystopias, that kind of thing, time travel, AIs, as a literature of subversion, mythopoeia, gender is in science fiction. But also I've thought about, simply put, the alien, the Xeno, and as explorations of the alien amongst ourselves and the alien within our own society. It's interesting, isn't it? What's the one I'm thinking on, Chris, is now there's a really good film of it. Something to do, I'm not sure if it's called just Culloden, but it's about the Battle of Culloden, and it's an old film. I'm not sure when it was made, maybe the 70s. And it's really good, Chris. It's first of all, it's kind of really good in terms of looking at the whole hoo-ha, if you like, the whole brouhaha. But what's really good about it is the whole film's done as if there's a BBC documentary crew there at the time, interviewing all the major participants, and not just soldiers from different sides, all of this kind of thing, because it is, I suppose, a bit of a hodgepodge of who's fighting for who, etc. This kind of thing. It's a messy battle. Excuse me. So again, we've started this, I suppose, with Gurney going, it must be this fatalistic phrase. Chirrut's gone. Are the Duke's dead and his son? Definitely. Well, the Harkonnens believe it. So that's not a yes, is it? Where such things are concerned, I'm inclined to trust the Harkonnens. It is almost an attempt, and I don't know. We've had a wee mention about this. Is this kind of Chirrut manipulating the situation, manipulating the information, refusing to give him a correct, a proper answer? Because the simple question is the Duke dead? The answer is yes. He's dead. I've seen his body. Is his son dead? I have no idea. That's the response. Not, oh, so and so believes it. No, there's according to his own criteria. I haven't seen his body, and nobody, etc., etc. Mm. So I don't know how much of this is Turek deliberately lying, deliberately manipulating. And I get the sense he's trying to be on the same page as Gurney. Gurney's going to be a big asset to him if he can calm him down, if he can control him. And of course, otherwise he'd happily destroy him out of hand. We get the repeat of this phrase, then it must be. Gurney repeats. And he holds out his right hand. So here we get another indicator. Palm up, thumb folded flat against it. Traditional gesture. Give you my sword. There you go. There's another. So there's a couple of things, by the way. If you do have a wee nosy about the internet, you can find. I would just do a search on something like the symbology of hand and of the hand or hands in mythology. There's absolutely tons of stuff. It's just so many cultures. But there's absolutely tons of representations of hands within it. And again, this is kind of think of it as more of a universal peace sign, if you think about it, or more. It's passive, isn't it? It's not the tucked in thing. It's straight. It's rigid. It's I don't know, but it's generally meant to represent a sort of universal kind of traditional gesture. As it's when you're taking an oath, this kind of thing is of earnestness, honesty. This kind of thing in this meaning, I think. And again, it's the right hand, agency. So Gurney says, I give you my sword, which is, sir, again, Gurney's a commander. He offers service, doesn't it? Servitude. Turek accepted. And then Gurney asks, do you want me to persuade my men? And Turek's asking him, would you let them make their own decisions? Excuse me. Now, this is the wee bit. Oh, goodness. Holly's in the house here, and she's chasing a fly, so I might get knocked flying if it's quite possible. This is the wee bit that we were talking about, folks, that when we started off the chapter, we talked about the epigraph at the very beginning. So let's just go back to that now and have a wee quick nosy at it. Where are we? So, just to remind us, we came from Caladan, a paradise world for our form of life. There existed no need on Caladan to build a physical paradise or a paradise of the mind. We could see the actuality all around us, and the price we paid was the price men have always paid for achieving a paradise in this life. We went soft, we lost our edge. I suppose if you're living in paradise, arguably you'd have to ask, why would you want to move into hell? And but from at this point, this is what Gurney says about the men. They followed me this far. Most of them are Caladan born. And this is what I thought. I just written this is funny. Arrakis isn't what they'd thought it would be. Now that's a euphemism if I've ever heard one. Move here for a couple of weeks, get slaughtered. It's just not what they thought it would be. I thought, how naive have they been? Or is it simply that there's that level of servitude that they've followed their masters to this place? They've given up. They've left paradise to come here and die for their duke. And it's just a bit, and they followed Gurney to do it as well. They followed me this far. Here they lost everything except their lives. And an awful lot of them have lost their lives, just not this 74. I'd prefer if they decided for themselves now. And again, this back and forth. Well, now's not the time to falter, Gurney. They followed you this far. And, it's a wee bit of sweet talk, isn't it, from Turek? And Gurney, again, I suppose gets it here, then. You need them then. Is that it? Well, we can always use experienced fighting men. These times more than ever. And I think it is interesting that we get that good men and then we go to fighting men, fighting men, fighting men. So Gurney says, well, you've accepted my sword. Do you wish me to persuade them? And again, it's like he needs orders It's quite strange in a way. You almost need someone to tell them what to do. Do you think they'll follow you, Gurney Halleck? Well, it's to be hoped, says Gurney. Well, indeed, says Chewik. Gurney says, well, I may make my own decision in this. Chewik says, your own decision. So, Gurney gets up from his bucket seat, feeling how much strength that small effort required. So, he's still knackered, very tired, and he tells Chewik that for now he'll see to quartering his men and see to their well-being. So he's not going to make a decision just yet. Excuse me. So this is where where Gurney and Chewik part, if you like. Chewik tells him to consult with my quartermaster Drisk, is his name. Tell him it's my wish you receive every courtesy. I'll join you myself presently. I have some off shipments of spice to see to first. And of course, Halleck makes this wee remark, well, fortune passes everywhere. So as much as Chewik's just lost his father, if you think about it this way, he's got a shipment of spice to sort out. Business comes first. The necessities of Arrakis comes first. And as Halleck says, fortune passes everywhere. And you can almost imagine that being said with a hint with a tone of bitterness, I'd imagine. Everywhere, says Chewik. A time of upset is a rare opportunity for our business, or war's good for business, if you like. There we go. Chris is saying it's the old docudrama Club from the 60s. That's the one I'm thinking on, Chris. It's still well worth a watch. I think it's brilliant. I haven't seen it in, oh goodness, I don't know how many years. It's been probably about 10 or 12 years at least since I've seen that film. If anybody hasn't, it's really, sort of a docudrama. There's something funny about it. And it's very well done, and it's quite informative. But yeah, it's really good. I couldn't tell you who made it or anything, but I think it was a BBC. Is it that old from the 60s? Still worth a watch. Yeah, I'd highly recommend it. If you're into old, it's a very interesting thing, I think, isn't it? Bojack says, could we went soft be referred to Gurney being duped so easily? Bojack, or let's say persuaded so easily. I don't know. It's an interesting. I don't know how to think about it. This idea of that you went soft, if you know what I mean, hard times makes hard people. This kind of thing. I'm not so sure it's a correct assessment, but you could argue that if you have a slave army, if you look at something like the Battle of Thermopylae, argue, what does a slave army do against an army of free men? You would argue that the slave army is the one that's oppressed, isn't it? That they have real hardship. Surely they're, does that make them much more deadlier, etc., than a man who's free, who will fight and die for his own freedom? Historically, the answer is proven no. Slave armies are not good armies, etc. If you see, free men fight better. That's just again another assessment of people in terms of their fighting abilities. I don't know. I thought it was really specifically just to do with this little comment that in terms of we went soft. Now, hang on a second. Let's have a wee look at this. It's taken from Muad'Dib Conversations. So this is Paul Atreides talking, isn't it, really? This is a chat, this is Princess Irulan writing his conversations down. We came from Caladan, a paradise world for our form of life. There existed no need on Caladan to build a physical paradise or a paradise of the mind. So there's the suggestive is that the Caladan is a physical paradise and is a paradise of the mind. We can see the actuality all about us. And the price that we paid was the price that men have always paid for achieving a paradise in this life. Now, that's the bit that doesn't quite add up. Achieving a paradise. We went soft, we lost our edge. Arguably, I think you'd have to work quite hard to achieve a paradise. But the suggestion that I don't know, you get the sense that Caladan's a natural paradise that you wouldn't really have to work at all to I don't know. It's an interesting thing, and it doesn't quite make sense. But the fact is that if you have a lovely life, it'll make you soft and weak. And to be honest with you, it's probably true. Um, I think not all the time, I suppose, but it's debilitating to that kind of life is debilitating to an individual in terms of how they learn skills, etc. And the problem, I suppose, comes when the individual's on their own and has no one else to help them. If you see what I mean. Hmm. But soft, I don't know. There's a within the evolutionary run Dune. I suppose we're talking about Darwinian theories of evolution, Lamarckian theories of evolution, and also this concept of the survival of the fittest. Excuse me 1 wee second, folks. I do need to blow my nose again. So there we go. Sorry about that. I don't know why I left my tissue for blowing my nose so far away. Yeah, it's a bit handy. Sorry about that, folks. Excuse me. It's one of these things. I think that the survival of the fittest thing is heavily in here, and the Fremen and the Sardaukar represent aspects of that. It's who's the fitter, I suppose, who is the fittest out of these groups. But it's a misconception, and the word fit, if you like, what makes you fit to survive isn't necessarily, I suppose these kind of ideas that it's a real tough life. I don't know. Everything's relative to a degree, isn't it? I suppose. It's a good point, though, Bojack. Thank you. Let's see. Where did we get to? Oh yes, this hand gesture. Oh yeah, they followed me this far. So he's going to give Gurney the choice as to whether he gives them the choice to I suppose, to stay. But we really get the sense that Chirrut could do with the men, and especially at this time, there's opportunities to be had, I suppose. There we go. Sorry, I was on the wrong page. Right. So, fortune passes everywhere, says Chirrut. A time of upset is a rare opportunity for our business. So Halleck departs here. He nodded, heard the fence susurration, and felt air shift as a lock port swung open beside him. He turned and ducked through it and out the office into the assembly hall. So this is where all his men are. And pretty much that's kind of the end of the discussion between Gurney and Chirrut. And I think that there have been sort of some similarities between the two men. Certainly, Staban Chirrut comes across as a lot more sensible and rational, if you like, within this chapter. Halleck, right as a man, rightly wronged, if you know what I mean, or he's out for revenge, I think, and is still pretty angry, pretty tired at this point. And so the men who are, as we were told, that's the bit that I thought was funny. Arrakis isn't what they thought it would be. And I wondered what exactly did they think it would be. So here's the hall. He and his men have been led here by Chirrut's aides, we're told. It's a long, narrow area that's been chewed out of the native rock. It has a smooth surface that betrays the use of cutter ray burners for the job. The ceiling stretched away high enough to continue the natural supporting curve of the rock and to permit internal air convection currents. There are weapons, racks, and lockers lining the walls. So Gurney observes his men here. And his men, he notes with pride, those of his men that are still able to stand do so, and that there's no relaxation in the weariness and defeat. There's no relaxation and weariness and defeat for them. Oh no. So they're still alert, if you see what I mean. We're told that smuggler medics are moving amongst them, tending to the wounded, and that litter cases assembled in litter cases assembled in one area to the left. Each wounded man has an Atreides companion with him. So the Atreides training, we're told, we care for our own. Held like a core of native rock in them. So they look after each other when stuff is bad. That's a mantra at the core of the Atreides training. Excuse me. So one of his lieutenants steps forward carrying Gurney Halleck's 9-string balisette, and it's out of out of its case, and he snaps a salute. I think this bit's a bit funny. I think a little bit disingenuous. So with all the sudden sneak attacks, etc., everything that's gone on, someone's had the foresight to pack up Gurney's balisette, bung it in a case, and carry it along in the middle of all of this. So this lieutenant speaks. He says, "Sir, medics say there's no hope for Matai. No bone or organ banks, and the only outpost medicine that we have that's all we've got. So Matai can't last, and he's got a request." "What is it?" asks Gurney. So here we go. Oh no, I've written oh no. Matai wants a song. He wants a song to ease his going, sir. He says you'll know the one. He's asked of it. He's asked it of you often enough. It's the one called "My Woman." And Halleck goes, "I know." So we're told that he rolls the balisette, flicks the multi-pick out of the catch on the fretboard, and drew a soft chord. And found that someone had already tuned it. And I've written a couple of notes here. I went, ha! Just happened to be somebody knows how to tune his balisette. There we go. So there's a burning in his eyes, that sensation, the anger, the emotion. Sorry, just I get where we're at here for Gurney's song. There we are. So it's burning in his eyes. He drove it out of his thoughts as he strolled forward, strumming the tune, forcing himself to smile casually. So we get a little bit of a mise-en-scene here. There's several men, and a smuggler medic, and they're bent over one of these litters, these stretchers, if you like. One of the men began singing softly as Halleck approached, catching the counterbeat with ease of long familiarity. And we get this song. And again, I'm not very fond of the songs, of Gurney's songs in this book at all. I think I don't know what to think about the writing either, but I even try and put them to tunes and things. But here's the lyrics. So, my woman stands at her window, curved lines gainst square glass, upraised arms bent, down folded, gainst sunset red and golded. Come to me, warm arms of my lass, for me, the warm arms of my lass. There we go. Gurney Halleck's greatest hits. I do apologize for the reading. I do try to put a wee bit of gusto into it. So it's kind of almost this cliche, isn't it? It's the young soldier dying. Just let me hear that, my favorite song. Or I always like the cliche of the parachutist who's I've keeping my parachute. It's going to make a wedding dress for my gal when I get back home. That guy always dies in a film, if you see what I mean. Excuse me. So just the conversation that deals with it, he comes back out into the cave. There's a dying man, Matai, and he plays a little bit of his favorite song, "My Woman," for this man. And it's just one of those moments, if you like. As I said, it's a bit of a cliche these days. We're all familiar with it probably from cinema, war films, this kind of thing. So my woman stands at her window and ends for me, the warm arms of my lass. Song's finished. The singer stopped, reached out, bandaged the arm, and closed the eyelids of the man on the litter. Again, another one, I suppose, very much a cinematic cliche, isn't it? And Halleck drew a final soft chord from the balisette. Now we are 73. There we go. And we have another wee death Another wee skull on our little book club. We like to sort of make a wee note of any time somebody doesn't make it, and there you go. There's Matt. So there we go, folks. And that was it's quite a short, punchy chapter. There's a lot sort of discussed, I suppose, and it's very much the rumor mill, isn't it? It's what they know, what they think they know, what the Harkonnens think they know. The guild requires us to be a bit circumspect, and kind of, I suppose, Halleck's desire for revenge. Kind of wonder how this conversation would play out if Halleck wasn't so tired, if you see what I mean. If he wasn't so fatigued, we keep getting the sense that the anger threatens to kind of overcome his fatigue, but not quite. And there's a little bit there where they're just a wee bit, I don't know. Chewik comes across as he's just lost his father as well. His parent, if you like, and probably his boss. Gurney doesn't quite have the same relationship with the House Atreides, if you like, but he's lost people he cares about, but it's not quite the same. And certainly in the face of kindness, Gurney's the one that's coming across as a wee bit irrational, etc. Chewik has a loss here too, but he's certainly a bit more mature about how he goes about dealing with it, how he's thinking about it. Is more subtle. Again, you're getting the sense that you might get plans within plans within plans from Chewik about how to avenge his father, if you like. And of course, we're going to get a bit of a chat about life in the Royal Creche at the start of the next chapter. But there we go. That's the end of chapter 8. And we're just coming up to midnight. So if you've got anybody got any wee questions, we'll go for a couple more minutes or so. Fire away. It's a short, compared to the previous chapter, which is very, very dense. It really is a nice wee sort of, it's a nice little break from that, I think, in terms of pacing. And it's conversation heavy. There's a little bit of sort of dramatic irony, for the reader there, that we know stuff that these characters don't know. And I suppose that comes across that both of these men are sort of correct and are right and wrong about different things. As are the Harkonnens, etc. So it is quite interesting, and I think it's an interesting compare and contrast with Gurney and Chewik. I think they come across as quite similar characters, if you like, in terms of their place within the action and all of that, within what's happening in the Dune narrative, and their go-to, their religious quotations. They kind of should riff off each other. They should see a sort of kind of almost a kindred type of spirit, if you like. But one's in much better control of his feelings, emotions, and how he's running things, even how he's dealing with his men, I suppose, than the other. I'd say Chewik's doing a lot better there than Gurney, But there we go, folks. So yeah, our next chapter is just before the end of it. It's not too long again. Let me see. Just before the end of the next chapter, we will be hitting. In fact, it's the very last word of this one is the halfway point. There we go. So, which we'll be doing the next Thursday. So, there we go. I'll just leave me to wrap things up, I suppose, unless anybody's got any wee questions. Excuse me. But once again, we're running with this once a week, every Thursday at 10 p.m. GMT +1. Until that sorts itself out. But we'll just keep running with this format. As I said, it does allow us to deal with each chapter a wee bit more in detail and a bit more of a relaxed fashion, I suppose. Well, there you go. Listen, folks, thanks very much for joining me. I've got to get the doggies out one more time as well. So I'll say all the very best to you. Thanks for joining me. And look after yourselves no matter where you are. And hopefully we'll see you for a bit of a sci-fi chat on Mondays at the same time, 10 p.m. GMT +1 here on the station. So all the very best, folks. And there's Bojack saying, thanks again, Doc. Take it easy. Save yourself. Look after yourselves, guys. Take it easy. All the best now. Bye-bye. God, I take forever to say goodbye, don't I?